Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ajay. In this video, we are going to learn how to implement passwordless authentication using Flutter and Firebase. So let's get started. Let's start with understanding the flow. Here we have a simple sign-in screen where user can enter his email ID and click on the sign-in button. Next, we are going to request Firebase to send an email to the user. User is going to minimize the app and open its inbox. In the email, there will be a Firebase dynamic link. User is going to click that link. It will open the app again. Now we are going to retrieve that dynamic link and validate it. Next, we are going to authenticate the user with Firebase using that link and the email ID. Once the user is authenticated, we are just going to open the home screen. On the home screen, we are going to display the user's email ID and a sign out button. So that's about the flow. I hope now you have a good understanding of the flow and we can head towards the implementation part. Next, create a new Flutter project, and once your Flutter project is ready, head over to Firebase console. There click on create new project, enter your project's name and click on continue. Again click on continue. Select the default Google Analytics account and click on create project. Hit on continue. Once you land on the project console, you'll see a Flutter icon. So just click on that. Next, we are going to install Firebase CLI. So just click on that link and install Firebase CLI according to your platform. I already have Firebase CLI installed. So let me just run Firebase login. Firebase login command will open a new tab window on your browser. So just you need to allow Firebase CLI and that's it. Next, just head back to the Firebase console and click on next. Here we'll need another CLI, that is Flutter Fire CLI. So I have already installed it on my machine, but you can just copy this command and run it. So I'm going to just copy the second command, which is Flutter Fire configure. That is going to configure our Firebase project with our Flutter app. So we need to run this command in our Flutter project's root directory. Once that is done, then you'll see your ID is complaining about the dependencies. So let's install the Firebase dependencies. So we are going to install three dependencies. The first one is Firebase auth, then Firebase dynamic links and Firebase core. Next, just let's head back to our Firebase console. There you'll see we have both Android and iOS app. Now we need to enable our passwordless authentication. So go to the left hand side menu. Under build, you will find authentication. Click on that and click on get started. Now select email and password and enable passwordless sign in and hit save. Next, we are going to create a Firebase dynamic link. So on the left hand side menu under engage, you will find dynamic links. Click on that. Click on get started. Here you need to enter your domain. Your domain should be suffixed with .page.link. So just click on next. Now let's create a new dynamic link. So just click on new dynamic link. Click on next. Here we need to set a behavior of the link when the link is open in the web browser. So I'm just going to enter my GitHub profile and give it a name and click on next. Next, we are going to define a behavior for the iOS app. So select the second option which says open the link in the app and select the iOS app. Same thing for Android, select the second option and select the app. Click on next and finish. So now we have successfully created our first dynamic link. So let me just copy it and check it on the browser. It should open my GitHub profile. Okay, that's working. Next, head to authentication section again and click on settings. Click on the last tab, that is settings, and under domains you will find authorized domains. So we need to add our domain here, which we just created, and click on add. That's it. Next is let's open Android manifest file. Here we need to add an intent filter where your scheme would be HTTPS and your host would be Firebase dynamic links domain. Next, open your Flutter project in the Xcode and go to the under targets, go to runner and then go to the second tab, sign in and capabilities. click on plus capabilities and double click on associated domains. Next, click on the plus icon. Here you need to add a prefix, that is app links colon, and then add your Firebase dynamic links domain. Next, go to the info tab, and here we need to add a URL type. Click on the plus icon. Your scheme would be your iOS bundle ID. Next, open your app level build.gradle file and set the minimum SDK version to 19. Then open the pod file from iOS folder and set the iOS version to 12.1. Let's do the same thing in Xcode. In the general tab in minimum deployment target, we need to set 12.1 as well. Now we have all the configurations set up, so let's head towards the Dart code. Okay, in here, let's start with our main.dart file. In the main function, we are running an init app function, which basically does the initialization of the Firebase app, and it's put the auth service in the dependencies. Next, it's initializing the app loader. Now, if you see on the home, we have a simple condition that is auth.is authenticated. That function just return a value, which is if your Firebase current Firebase user is null or not. According to it, we are going to display either the home screen or the sign-in screen. Next, let's just look at the sign-in screen. In here, we have a simple asset and a simple text field and a sign-in button. Next, let's head towards the home screen. In here, we have a simple asset, a welcome message with an email ID, and a sign out button. Let's talk about the sign in controller. Here I'm using getX for the state management, but you can use whatever state management you prefer. So here I wanted to highlight we are using widget binding observer, so that whenever the app is resumed, we get to know. So we have an override function which is called did change app lifecycle state. So whenever app state is resumed, then we are going to call a function that is retrieve dynamic link and sign in. Next, we have the home controller. Our home controller is very simple. It only have a single method, that is sign out. Let's head to auth service and create the function send email link. This function takes email as input parameter. The first thing in this which we are going to do is we are going to create an object for action code settings. Action code settings takes four variables as parameter. The first one is URL. URL would be your Firebase dynamic link which we created on the Firebase console, and we are going to send email as a parameter to this URL. Next, there is a flag called handle code in app that should be true, and third and fourth would be Android package name and iOS bundle ID. Now we are going to call Firebase auth dot send in link to email and pass on email ID and action code settings object. And we are going to just run success. Next, let's just talk about the function retrieve dynamic link and sign in. Like the name suggests, first thing which we are going to do in this function is we are going to retrieve the dynamic link. It is a parameter, input parameter, which is from cold state, which represent two states. First is when the app is resumed, and the second is if app is a new instance. If the app is a new instance, then we are going to retrieve the dynamic link using the function get initial link. If not, then we are going to use onLink stream. Once we have the dynamic link data, we are going to check whether it's null or not. If it's null, we are going to just return a response not found. Next, if it's not null, we are going to validate that particular link using the function is sign in with email link. If our link is valid, then we are going to retrieve the user's email ID from the continue URL. Next, we are just going to call sign in with email link function and passing the email and the dynamic link. That function is going to return us user credentials. Then we are going to check whether the user credentials dot user is not null. If it's not null, that means we are successfully authenticated and we are going to return success. If not, then we are going to return and not able to sign in. Then if the link was not valid, we are going to respond not found, link is not valid. And lastly, we are just going to wrap it with try and catch. Next is a sign out function in which we are just going to call the sign out function from the Firebase auth itself. That's it for the implementation part. Now just let's run the app and test it out. Okay, I'm going to enter my email ID and click on sign in button. Let's head over to our inbox. If we click on this link, the app should get opened and users should be signed in. Yes, that's working, right? So we have successfully implemented passwordless authentication using Flutter and Firebase. Thanks for watching. If you have any feedback or questions, please comment down below. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe for more content like this. You're watching Project AJ.